If the strain of having 2 weeks off and missing representative duties is worrying Mark Sargent, it isn't showing. Since tearing a ligament in his ankle, Sargent has been in plaster. Initially he was told it would be 6 weeks before he even could walk again, but his determination to stay fit has paid off.
I spoke to the doctor this morning. It's 2 weeks since I've done it, and he's pretty happy with the way it's coming along, and he may be taking me out of the cast next week and get me off the crutches. So hopefully I'll be back at least walking around next week.
Rather than sitting around the house and moping, every day he hits the gym, putting in a few hours lifting weights and working the climber. And amongst the sweaty confines of the gym and aerobics classes, he forms an unusual picture with his cast.
I don't sort of get too many funny looks around the gym. You get the occasional person who will be in two minds as to whether to offer help or that.
Sargent expects to be running within 2 weeks and intends to be charging onto the ball in time to force his team into the semi-finals. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
This was Lake Macquarie Council's first meeting since Doug Carley resigned as mayor last week. What had to be determined last night was a date for the election. That will be held on Saturday, the 24th of July. All adult residents of Lake Macquarie will be required to vote for a new mayor and Ward 2 residents for a new alderman. Also on the same day, residents will have a say on the future of Green Point. Alderman Bob Tussis is part of a 3-person committee which will decide on the wording of the referendum. In other Lake Macquarie news, member for Swansea Don Bowman has announced he will not stand again for re-election. Instead, he is backing Lake Macquarie Alderman Jill Hall for pre-selection when he retires in 2 years' time. It's well known the ALP is keen to increase the number of women in its ranks, and Alderman Hall says she's looking forward to the challenge of state politics. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The boys were taking it in turns to ride a trail bike around an old quarry at Hillsborough near Newcastle. A 15-year-old from Dudley suffered head injuries when he apparently failed to pull up after a few jumps. The bike ploughed into a ditch, hurling its rider head first into a tangle of branches and the hard ground.
Just come down here, just going pretty fast too. Oh, a little bit fast anyway.
Pretty tricky area to ride?
Yeah, it is. Got a lot of jumps and hard jumps and that too.
Sean ran to a nearby golf club for help. Because of the rugged terrain, the region's rescue helicopter was called in. Paramedics treated the victim for head injuries and shock. He was then flown to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
In December last year, untreated effluent flowed for 4.5 hours into South Creek at Warners Bay on the northern shore of Lake Macquarie. It's believed Hunter Water Corporation staff were conducting field tests when a pump failed, causing an upstream manhole to overflow. Lake Macquarie Council and the Environment Protection Authority were told of the discharge by residents.
Water samples indicated to us that certainly there had been some discharge of raw sewage to the creek.
The December discharge is not the only concern Lake Macquarie Council has. There is also a manhole along the esplanade at Warners Bay that continues to overflow during heavy rain, flooding yards with wastewater. During a special meeting this morning, the corporation gave an undertaking that it will examine both issues. It's ordered a full report on the December pollution flow and has approached the EPA for a licence to pump the esplanade flow into the lake. Council believes that pollution in the lake can be minimised by working with the corporation. However, Head of Environmental Services John Parks says Council hasn't ruled out prosecuting Hunter Water for the Warners Bay discharge.
Well, there's always that possibility. A lot will depend upon the response from the corporation and how positive we believe that those solutions are to trying to resolve the problem.
Jodie McKay, NBN News. The NRMA conducted a statewide survey assessing the level of car thefts last year. It revealed the number of cars stolen statewide had gone down in all areas except Newcastle, where there was a marked increase of almost 10%. Port Stephens and Gloucester council areas recorded slight increases. However, the alarming jump is Newcastle.
For many years now, Newcastle has always enjoyed a very low theft rate increase, but this year we're the only one that's gone up.
The figure could be even higher.
The NRMA only enjoys 60% of the market, so if we take a line on that and consider what may have happened with the other 40%, the increase could be a lot more than what we've experienced.
50% of all vehicles stolen are from those parked in the streets. However, also becoming increasingly popular targets with the thieves are council car parks and shopping centres. Mr Farthing says a major reason for the theft hike is complacency, people not locking their cars or failing to turn on alarms. To combat the problem, he suggests forming a task force with local council, police and NRMA representatives.
Well, there could be a campaign of ensuring that people know where the black spots are within a city like Newcastle not to park their car.
Mr Farthing says a similar task force formed in Wollongong reduced car thefts by 30%. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
For more than a year, the future of Maitland Hospital has been kicked from one side of the political fence to the other. But Maitland City Council has now straddled that fence and pushed along the proposed redevelopment of the 150-year-old hospital by approving the state government's application to upgrade the facility.
General feeling last night was a very good one. Bipartisan, people were coming out on both sides of the political spectrum and saying what a wonderful thing it is for Maitland.
The $30 million stage one of the upgrading includes a new main entrance, operating suite with day surgery facilities and 2 40-bed wards.
Redevelopment of Maitland Hospital will be a major boost not only for Maitland but the whole of the area health service. It will give Maitland Hospital new wards, a new emergency department and additional operating theatres.
While the redevelopment is seen as an advantage for healthcare in one of the Hunter's fastest growing areas, there are still reservations. In their report, the council officers have expressed concerns about just how compatible the designs of some of the new developments will be with the existing heritage list of buildings. To address that, the council is asking the relevant government departments to keep working on the designs.
We want the design to remain somewhat similar to the design of the buildings that are already there, rather than have some outrageous modern architectural design.
The Hunter Area Health Service expects work to begin on the redevelopment in November, with the project to be completed by the end of 1995.
Auxiliary Captain Alan Daly has waited 4 months for this, a family reunion and his favourite home-cooked meal. Alan was on active duty in Somalia with 900 other Australians. His job as a Salvation Army officer to give troops moral support and guidance. While he admits it was at times dangerous, he never felt under threat.
Quite a few times overnight you'd hear gunfire where the Somalians were having a bit of a gunfight themselves, but then it sort of quietened down.
While most Australians have moved out of Somalia, around 22,000 troops from other countries remain. Alan believes the wars between different tribes in the country will probably go on indefinitely. However, the military presence has guaranteed important relief aid is getting through to starving communities. He brought back many photos and memories of the tragedy that is Somalia.
You just felt that you'd like to be able to do more, but was restricted in what you could do.
Auxiliary Captain Daly will be awarded an Active Australian Service Medal in Townsville in 10 days' time. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Russian-born Australian boxer Kostya Tszyu and his opponent, American Larry LaCourciere, came together today for the first time since both arrived in Newcastle for tomorrow night's international fight. Both say they're ready for the fight, however Kostya was a little coy about the subject.
I don't like to talk about fight before fight. What I do, what I know, I will do in the ring.
How are you feeling within yourself?
I feel very good.
Larry LaCourciere turned professional almost 3 years ago and is undefeated in 16 pro fights. A win over Kostya would change his life.
It would shoot me right up the rankings, and it would change my entire life. It would become my life, boxing would. It isn't my entire life right now.
Kostya has a number 8 WBC ranking and is undefeated. However, Larry's coach, Ron Peterson, remains undaunted by Kostya's record.
Since we've been here, I've heard that Kostya Tszyu is a thinking fighter. Well, tomorrow night he's going to meet the professor.
Today, promoter Bill Mordy announced the Newcastle fight will hit the international spotlight, with tapes of the fight being televised at a later date in America, Europe, South America and the Far East. Mr Mordy also hinted if tomorrow night's fight is successful, Newcastle may be in line to host a world title fight. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. For the last few years, Newcastle Jockey Club has been losing money. A few months ago, the club applied for assistance from industry regulator, the TAB board. Yesterday, the club received word the $4,000 Saturday subsidy the club now gets would be scrapped. Instead, it'd receive 1% of the turnover from each Saturday meeting. That totals around $50,000 a year, but in real terms, it'd be more like $34,000. Enough, according to the Jockey Club.
When you look at the amendments to the midweek TAB ceiling, whereby they'll lower the base from 1% over $500,000 to 1% over $300,000, that will have the effect of reducing the overall pool for distribution.
The Jockey Club is looking at $1 million loss for this financial year. If that trend continues, the NJC Secretary-Manager says the club will be insolvent by 1996. Mr Curtis says it's time for desperate moves.
One of them is to look at dropping some Saturday meetings to really bring the matter to a head, because I'm sure that we would get the support of the entire racing industry because they'd be affected by it.
Today he broke the news to staff that 20% of the club's 25 employees will be retrenched. Also, he says Broadmeadow may have to be closed as a training track. Mr Curtis today informed the Sports Minister, the TAB and the AGC of the moves and is hoping for an 11th hour reprieve. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Michael Connell is an Australian number 1. A motorbike accident 11 years ago left him a paraplegic, but for more than half a decade he's dominated Australian wheelchair tennis, holding down our top ranking with his powerful ground strokes and match play. But that's not quite the way he describes it.
My backhand's a better shot of mine, so my forehand's a bit crappy. Not much chop, but... My serve wasn't very good before my accident, so when you drop down to a 4 foot instead of 6 foot, it even makes it harder. You've got to put a lot more topspin on a ball, which means there's not as much pace on it. So the taller you are in a chair, the better it is, but then again, the lower you are in a chair, the more manoeuvrability you have.
And that manoeuvrability doesn't come easy. There's 5 or 6 days a week of tennis and the rest.
Well, around Caves Beach there's a lot of hills, so I wipe myself out going up and down those when I go for a push, do a few weights whenever I can fit them in, and generally do some fitness work on court when I'm doing a lesson. We do a lot of pushing around, chasing balls down, till your arms turn to rubber, so it's a fairly demanding sport.
And after knocking off the world number 1 at the Australian Open in February, how does he rate his chances in Atlanta?
It should be a very good tournament. There's a lot of good players there. And last year I made the semis and I almost made the final. I got beaten a tiebreaker in the 3rd set, so that was a little bit disappointing. So with a bit of luck, it's a nice one, so I should play well.
It was a battleship grey day around the port, but crowds flocked to HMAS Perth and Brisbane, docked in Newcastle. The ships arrived on Friday after exercises off Tasmania. Many of the almost 700 personnel were on their first tour of duty, some visiting their home port for the first time since joining up. The Perth carries a proud history. The ship's name was passed down from a previous Royal Australian Navy light cruiser sunk in World War II. This ship, built in 1965, saw service during the Vietnam War and numerous deployments since. HMAS Perth underwent a major refit in 1986 and was equipped with the latest in military communications and guided missile systems. The Perth and Brisbane leave port tomorrow, headed for North Queensland, then Southeast Asian waters.
There's a frightening moment in time when a motorist is turned into a killer. If that impact between car and human occurs on a lonely stretch of road, there may be a temptation to flee the scene. Recent figures show that each year more than 500 people are injured or killed in hit-and-run accidents on New South Wales roads. Marshall Innes from the Newcastle suburb of New Lambton knows well what it's like to be left for dead. He was hit from behind while riding his bicycle on Maitland Road at Hexham. Marshall survived, but he has a broken back and multiple fractures.
It makes me feel scared that someone would leave you there to die. I can't help feeling that they knew what they'd done. I'm sure that they must have felt the impact.
While a driver may think they got away without being seen, vital clues are invariably left behind which can trace a path to the motorist's door. A headlight or indicator can be reconstructed from fragments gathered at the scene. The clothes of the victim can be analysed for paint particles. This scientific sleuthing can reveal the make of the car. Once identified, every owner of that type of vehicle can be tracked down and questioned.
People are very likely to start acting strangely, secretively. That of course would be guilt involved, and generally they hide the vehicle away, place it in the garage and inexplicably stop using the vehicle.
The public can provide vital leads. In Newcastle alone, 80% of hit-and-run cases are solved. Senior Constable Bruce Kimber says the driver is not always at fault, but once they leave the scene of the accident, they immediately make their situation worse. More than 3 weeks have passed since Marshall Innes was hit. For the motorist who did flee the Hexham scene, there's the discomforting knowledge that police are on the trail. A woman has anonymously contacted them with a lead on the vehicle which may have been involved, a small truck with a roller door. Police have urged the anonymous caller to contact them again. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
In the Milbrodale Valley near Singleton, past the rusting dreams of white settlers, you can find some of the last links to an ancient culture. Painted on cave walls is Aboriginal rock art. Up to 2,000 years old, these images reach back to the Dreamtime, conjuring up the lives and beliefs of the Wonnarua people who once roamed the valley.
This is a sky god Biami. This is a representation of what Aboriginal people in the local area believe in. He's got his arms out like that and he's the guardian of the valley, so the people believe that he was the guardian of this valley.
To keep alive the meaning of these symbols and to help unlock their secrets for all Australians, the Wonnarua Lands Council, Upper Hunter Skillshare and the National Parks and Wildlife Service have devised a unique training scheme. They've taught 6 young Aborigines to be tour guides for the rock art sites.
Well, this one's the first we've run and, as I understand it, the first in New South Wales.
The trainee guides say the course has not only taught them about their own culture, they now feel proud to be carrying some of their people's past into the future.
A lot of people will learn from it, like white and black people at the same time, and it will go on to be part of education and throughout schools.
With the ever-increasing interest in Aboriginal culture, more and more people are wanting to visit sites like these. But there's concern that with the influx of tourists, the very future of these artworks could be threatened.
Opening sites up for such purposes for tourism education, and there is a danger that people may again destroy the site. But it's important also to educate the wider community about Aboriginal culture and about the importance of protecting such sites like this.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Newcastle mall traders are encouraged by the opportunity to discuss with council the mall's future and how best to promote it. They're concerned the mall isn't competing with major shopping complexes. Two men going to tonight's meeting are local traders John Levy and Merv Atkin. They believe the mall needs to be made more physically attractive and contain more entertainment like large chess games. Another major issue is removing parking meters, the fines for which Mr Levy believes are too expensive.
$50 because you've gone 5 minutes over is hardly fair, and I think the fine has got to be reduced, but we have to retain some form of restrictions.
Mall shop owners have been supporting a parking metre petition which wants parking metres replaced with hourly parking signs and parking fines reduced. Another suggestion is to establish a police mall to reduce graffiti and violence levels. Newcastle Lord Mayor also believes mall traders can learn from shopping centre strategies.
A regional shopping centre, you've got one general manager, one marketing program, one person sorting out the shopping mix. We've got 1,200, not one.
The Lord Mayor says this idea, plus others, will be discussed tonight.
Police moved into position on street corners and back lanes near the courthouse. Officers watched over rooftops through the fog. Just before 9 o'clock, the man charged with kidnapping and killing the mother of two, 29-year-old Paul Anthony Richardson, was escorted into the back of the police station. Officers were eager to avoid any conflict with the gathering crowd and to prevent a repeat of an incident some years ago when a sniper positioned himself on a rooftop.
I believe it was a rifle from the post office opposite the courthouse.
Richardson was again taken by a back way into the court. Those waiting to enter the public gallery, including the friends and family of Sandra Millwood, were searched at the front door. Richardson neither asked for nor was given bail. Richardson's counsel requested that he remain in protective custody and undergo psychiatric assessment. The matter was adjourned to Cessnock Court on the 27th of July. Richardson was also formally charged with sexual assault and maliciously setting fire to Mrs Millwood's car. Again, out of view of most of the crowd, Richardson was bundled into a police car and returned to Maitland Jail. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
They may have been on the wrong end of a win last weekend, but the Falcons haven't lost their sense of humour or enthusiasm for training. In both losses, the team's three-point shot average was almost non-existent. So this week there's been plenty of emphasis on bagging the long shots early in the game.
You can't give teams leads like we did last weekend. You know. We did get back, but it's just psychologically, and you see that scoring, you know, you're down by 20. But we'll be doing it this weekend. We won't let them get away.
This time last Friday, the Falcons were clear competition leaders. Now they've slumped to 7th.
Before the losses, we were trying to answer the question, what does it feel like to be on top? And, 1 week later, we're answering the question, what happened?
The ever-growing basketball crowds probably had a lot to do with it. In Townsville and on the Gold Coast, they cheered and hyped their home teams into a frenzy. The Falcons hope it's their turn for a bit of vocal support.
It's great being back home. We have won 6 ball games over the last 2 years now straight here at home, and we're one of only 2 undefeated teams in the competition at home this year. So that again shows the balance in the league, how it's evening out. Teams are winning on the road, and certainly having a capacity crowd at the entertainment centre could help us.
And Coach Wisman's wish just might come true. Throughout the day, ticket sales for tomorrow night's game have been consistent. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
The Freeman's Drive Becks Road interchange near Cooranbong has been off limits to traffic since 2:30 this afternoon, as 6 fire units have dealt with the potentially flammable chemical spill. A 27-year-old truck driver from Scone was turning off the F3 freeway when part of his load of soda ash and sodium hydrosulfide toppled onto the road.
He lost about 16 drums of sodium hydrosulfide. It is a toxic substance.
Fire officers' concerns were that sodium hydrosulfide can ignite spontaneously and give off toxic fumes.
We've had to seal off the area just in case there was some contaminant. That's our main fear, that there's oil or some other substance does mix with it, and we have got problems then.
Officers had to wear breathing apparatus and use a front-end loader and large bins to remove the chemicals from the road. The truck driver was taken to Wyong Hospital with breathing difficulties. Say the interchange has become a truck black spot.
It's been a bad accident spot over the years. We've had at least 6 semi-trailer accidents here, and I think the appropriate authority, the RTA, should do something about signposting this area to slow these trucks down.
Freeman's Drive is not expected to be reopened until later tonight. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The skipper's spree allegedly started almost 6 months ago when a car hire firm reported one of its vehicles missing. The car, with its tyres now worn down to threads, was recovered by Belmont Police last night. Using a host of assumed names and credit cards, the skipper, believed to be from Sydney, has allegedly toured the state, running up hotel bills from Bega to Coffs Harbour. A man using the alias B. Neath checked into the Lake Macquarie Motor Inn last weekend.
He was a very likeable chap, well presented and posed as a company rep.
B. Neath dined in the motel's restaurant, chatted to staff and was joined by a female companion.
His wife or a lady friend were here on Friday and Saturday nights, or Friday and Saturday night, and then she left on the Sunday.
The motel's proprietors realised something was wrong when they received a Motel Association newsletter warning of the skipper. Police were called and a man was arrested in his room last night. Sydney detectives will conduct interviews in Newcastle.